Clara Ashford's knees hit the frozen ground first. Then her whole body followed, curling around the baby in her arms like a wounded animal making its last stand. 8 months of running. 8 months of slammed doors and spit-on faces. And now, on this God-forsaken crossroads in the Colorado mountains, her legs just quit. "Mama's sorry," she choked into her daughter's blanket. "Mama tried so hard." The November wind screamed back at her, and Clara Ashford closed her eyes to die. But death wasn't done with her yet. If you want to know how this widow's fate unfolds, subscribe to my channel and stay with me until the very last word. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Clara couldn't feel her fingers anymore. She'd stopped feeling them somewhere around mile 3, maybe 4. Now they were just claws wrapped around Lily's blanket, frozen in place like they belonged to a corpse. "Just a little more," she whispered. "Someone's gonna come. Someone's gotta come." Lily didn't answer. The baby had stopped crying 2 days ago. Too weak. Too hungry. Now she just made these small sounds like a kitten mewing, and each one cut through Clara worse than the wind ever could. The crossroads stretched out in 4 directions. North to Denver, where the sheriff had run her out at gunpoint. East to the mining camps where she'd lasted exactly 1 night before fleeing. South to nothing but wilderness and wolves. And west was ranching country. The kind of place where women alone disappeared and nobody asked questions. Clara laughed. It came out cracked and wrong. 4 roads, she said to no one. 4 roads, and not a single one wants me. She thought about Thomas, her husband. Dead 8 months now with a bullet in his chest and $37 in his pocket. That's what his life had been worth to the men who robbed that train. $37. And somehow the whole town had blamed her. "Should have kept him home that morning," old Mrs. Patterson had said at the funeral, loud enough for Clara to hear. "Bad luck, woman. Everyone knows it." Clara had wanted to scream, wanted to grab the old bat by her black dress and shake her until her teeth rattled. But she'd just stood there, 6 months pregnant and freshly widowed, while the whispers circled like vultures. Then Eleanor Ashford had delivered the killing blow, her mother-in-law. The woman who'd smiled at Clara's wedding and called her daughter. The woman who'd promised Thomas she'd always look after his wife. "Get out of my house." Clara could still hear those words. Still see Eleanor's face twisted with grief and something uglier underneath. "Thomas never wrote to me about any baby. 8 months married and suddenly you're pregnant, after he's dead and can't speak for himself." Eleanor had grabbed Clara's arm hard enough to bruise. "Whose bastard is that in your belly, girl, because it sure ain't my son's." "It is," Clara had begged. "Eleanor, I swear to God. Don't you speak God's name in my presence." Eleanor's nails had dug into Clara's skin. Get out and never come back. I'll see you hang before I let you steal my son's inheritance with your whore's child." Clara had left with nothing, the clothes on her back, a few dollars she'd hidden in her shoe, and a baby growing inside her that nobody believed was legitimate. She'd been running ever since. Now her running was done. "I'm sorry, little one." Clara pressed her cracked lips to Lily's forehead. The baby's skin was cold. Too cold. "Mama did everything she could. I swear I did." The wind howled. The snow kept falling, and Clara Ashford let her eyes close. The sound of hoofbeats came from somewhere far away. Clara didn't open her eyes. She'd learned better than to hope. Hope was just disappointment that hadn't caught up yet. But the hoofbeats got louder. Closer. Then they stopped. "Hell's bells!" A man's voice. Deep and rough like boots scraping over gravel. Clara forced her eyes open. A shape loomed above her. Tall. Broad-shouldered. Sitting on a black horse that had to be 16 hands high. She couldn't see his face, just the dark outline of a hat and the glint of something metal at his hip. "You alive down there?" Clara tried to speak. Her lips wouldn't work right. She managed a nod. That a baby you're holding? Another nod. Christ almighty. The man swung down from his horse in one motion. His boots crunched through the frozen snow as he moved toward her. How long you been out here? Clara's mouth worked. Nothing came out but a croak. The man knelt beside her, and she finally saw his face. He was older, maybe 45, maybe more. Hard to tell out here where the land aged men fast. His jaw was square under a salt and pepper beard, and a scar ran from his left temple down to his cheekbone. The kind of scar that came from a knife or a bayonet, not an accident. But his eyes stopped her cold, gray, pale as winter sky, and looking at her like she was actually there, like she was actually human. She'd forgotten what that felt like. Can you stand? He asked. Don't think so. When'd you eat last? Clara tried to remember. The days blurred together. Don't know. The man's jaw tightened. He pulled off his heavy canvas coat and wrapped it around her shoulders before she could protest. I'm taking you to my place, he said. 2 hours west. You got a problem with that. I ain't got nothing to pay you with. Did I ask for payment? Clara stared at him. Mister, you don't know me. You don't know what people say about me. Don't much care what people say about anybody. He reached for Lily, and Clara flinched back instinctively. He stopped, waited. I ain't gonna hurt her. Just need to check if she's breathing proper. Clara hesitated. Then slowly she let him pull back the blanket. Lily's face was pale. Too pale. But her eyes fluttered open, and she made that small mewing sound. Something crossed the man's face. Pain, maybe. Or recognition of a different kind. She's cold, he said. But she's fighting. Tough little thing. She gets that from her father. Where's her father? Dead. The man nodded once like that was all the information he needed. He stood and lifted Clara like she weighed nothing at all. Baby and all wrapped in his coat that smelled like leather and wood smoke and something else. Something alive. Name's Samuel Thornton, he said, carrying her toward his horse. Most folks call me Sam. Clara Ashford, and this is Lily. Well, Clara Ashford. Sam set her on the horse's back, then swung up behind her. His arm came around her waist, solid and warm. Let's get you somewhere you ain't gonna freeze to death. They rode in silence for a while. Clara drifted in and out, her body finally giving up the fight now that someone else was doing the fighting. Sam's chest was warm against her back, his heartbeat steady. She couldn't remember the last time she'd felt another person's heartbeat. You from back east? His voice startled her awake. What? Your accent. It ain't from around here. Boston. Clara's throat was raw. Originally, moved to Kansas when I married Thomas. Then he got the railroad job in Colorado, and we... She stopped. Doesn't matter now. How'd he die? Train robbery, 8 months ago. Sam was quiet for a moment. I heard about that. Bad business. They catch the men who did it. No, they caught me instead. She felt him tense behind her. What's that mean? Means the whole town decided I was bad luck. Means my mother-in-law told everyone Lily ain't Thomas's baby. Means I got run out of every place I tried to stop. Clara laughed bitterly. You sure you want me in your house, Mr. Thornton? I got a reputation for bringing trouble. Sam. What? Call me Sam. And I've had enough trouble in my life that a little more won't make much difference. Clara turned her head slightly, trying to see his face. That scar. The war. Mexico. Long time ago. You don't look old enough for the Mexican War. I was 16 when I enlisted. Lied about my age. Sam's arm tightened around her waist as the horse navigated a steep incline. Did a lot of things I ain't proud of in those years. Killing men for land that wasn't ours to take. Is that why you're helping me guilt? The question hung in the air between them. Sam didn't answer right away. Maybe, he said finally. Maybe I just don't like seeing people die when I can do something about it. Maybe I'm tired of this house being so damn quiet. He paused. Maybe it don't matter why. Clara faced forward again, pulling Lily closer against her chest. The baby had fallen asleep, her breathing shallow but steady. You got a wife waiting at home. Had one, Margaret. She died 3 years ago. I'm sorry. So am I. The words sat between them heavy with shared understanding. Two people who knew exactly what it meant to lose everything that mattered. What happened to her? Clara asked after another mile of silence. Your wife, if you don't mind me asking. Yellow fever. Sam's voice was flat, controlled. Swept through the territory that summer. Took her and our boy both. Clara's heart clenched. You had a son? Daniel. He was 7. Sam's arm shifted against her waist. He got sick first. Margaret wouldn't leave his side, wouldn't let anyone else nurse him. By the time he passed, she was already burning up with fever herself. Were you there? No. The single word carried more pain than a scream ever could. I was checking cattle in the north pasture, 2 days' ride. By the time I got word and made it back. He stopped. They were already in the ground. Clara didn't offer empty condolences. She knew how worthless those were. That's why you stopped for me, she said instead. Isn't it because you couldn't save them? Sam was silent for a long moment. I came home to a quiet house, he said finally. Door was open, fire was out. Found Eliza, she's the midwife who'd been helping, sitting on the porch with her head in her hands. Couldn't even speak, just pointed at the 2 fresh graves behind the barn. Clara felt tears burning behind her eyes. Not for herself this time. For this stranger who'd pulled her out of the snow. I can't change what happened, Sam continued. Can't bring them back. Can't undo the choices I made. His voice hardened. But I can make damn sure you and that baby don't die on a frozen road while I've got a warm fire sitting empty. That much is in my power. Clara reached down and placed her hand over his where it rested on her waist. Just for a moment. Just long enough to let him know she understood. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet. You ain't seen the state of my house. The ranch emerged from the darkness like something out of a dream. Clara blinked, certain she was seeing things. The main house was 2 stories of solid pine logs, with a porch running the whole front length and smoke curling from a stone chimney. A barn stood nearby, big enough for a dozen horses. Outbuildings scattered around a blacksmith's forge, what looked like a bunkhouse storage sheds. This is yours, she breathed. Built most of it myself after the war. Had help with the big stuff. Sam guided the horse toward the barn. Thornton Creek Ranch, 5,000 acres of cattle land, timber rights to the North Ridge, and water rights to the creek that gives it its name. Clara's head spun. She'd expected a cabin, a homestead. Not this. You're rich. Comfortable. Sam dismounted and helped her down. Her legs buckled the moment her feet touched ground, and he caught her easily. Easy now. Let's get you inside. He half-carried her to the house, pushed open the door with his shoulder. The interior hit Clara like a fist to the chest. Everything was clean. Maintained. But frozen somehow like a photograph of a life that had stopped. A woman's shawl hung by the door covered in dust. 2 china plates sat on a shelf, one worn from use, one pristine and untouched. A rocking chair faced the fireplace, positioned just right for someone who would never sit in it again. Clara recognized this house. She'd lived in one just like it for the past 8 months. A shrine to a dead woman. It ain't much, Sam said, guiding her toward a chair by the cold fireplace. It's everything, Clara whispered. Sam paused, looking down at her. Something flickered in those gray eyes. Then he turned away, moving to build a fire with quick, efficient movements. I'll get water heating. When's the last time that baby ate proper? Yesterday morning. She's been too weak to nurse much. Sam's hand stilled on the kindling, just for a second. Then he struck a match and flames caught. Get yourself warm. I'll bring food. You eat first, then feed her. Sam, don't argue with me, Mrs. Ashford. He stood brushing off his knees. You're in my house now. That means you do what I say. Clara's chin came up. And if I don't? For the first time, something like a smile tugged at the corner of Sam's mouth. "Then I reckon we're gonna have ourselves a problem." The soup was simple. Beef and vegetables, nothing fancy. But to Clara, it tasted like salvation. She ate 3 bowls, while Sam watched from across the room, pretending to clean his rifle, but not fooling anyone. Lily had woken and nursed eagerly the first real feeding in days, and now slept peacefully in a basket Sam had produced from somewhere. "Where'd you get the baby things?" Clara asked, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. Sam's hands stopped moving on the rifle. "They were Daniel's. Been sitting in the attic for 3 years. "Oh." Clara set down her spoon. "I didn't mean you don't have to. Baby needs a basket. I got a basket. Ain't no sense letting it rot when someone can use it." Sam's voice was gruff, but she heard what he wasn't saying underneath. "There's more stuff up there. Clothes Margaret made that Daniel outgrew. Blankets. Whatever you need." Clara's eyes burned. "Why are you doing this? Really?" "Already told you." "You told me why you stopped on the road. You didn't tell me why you're giving me dead children's things like it's nothing." Sam set down the rifle, stood, walked to the window and stared out at the darkness. "You see that hill out there east of the barn?" Clara looked. She could barely make out a gentle rise covered in snow. "That's where they're buried. Margaret and Daniel. I dug those graves myself. Took me 3 days because I kept having to stop and—" His voice broke, just barely. Just enough. "I see that hill every morning when I wake up, every night before I go to sleep. I've been looking at it for 3 years. Sam, you know what I've learned in 3 years of looking at that hill?" He turned to face her. "I learned that the dead don't care if their things get used. They don't care if someone else wears their clothes or sleeps in their bed or sits in their chair. They're gone. They ain't coming back no matter how much we wish different." He crossed the room, stopping in front of her. "But the living still need help. And I reckon I've spent long enough tending graves when there's people right in front of me who need tending." Clara looked up at him. This hard, scarred man who'd pulled her out of the snow, who'd opened his home to a stranger, who was offering her pieces of his dead family like they were gifts instead of weights. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "Don't want thanks." Sam turned away, moving toward the kitchen. "Want you to stay. Through the winter at least. Place needs a woman's touch, and I ain't got the first idea how to keep house proper. I'll pay fair wages for the work." Clara's breath caught. "You're offering me a job. I'm offering you a roof over your head and food in your belly. Call it what you want. People will talk. A woman living alone with a man she ain't married to. Let them talk. You don't understand." Clara stood swaying slightly. "The whispers follow me everywhere. They'll come here too. They'll say I'm your whore, that I'm after your money, that I'm—" "Mrs. Ashford." Sam's voice cut through her panic like a blade. "I've been shot twice, stabbed 3 times, and spent 2 years fighting a war we had no business fighting. I've buried my wife and my son and most of my faith in humanity." He stepped closer. "You think I give a damn what people whisper?" Clara stared at him. "Don't you? I care about 2 things in this world, whether my cattle are fed and whether the people under my roof are safe." He held her gaze. "Everything else is just noise." The fire crackled in the silence. Lily made a small sound in her basket. Clara felt something shifting inside her chest, something that had been locked away for 8 long months. "All right," she heard herself say. "Until spring." Sam nodded. "I'll show you to your room." The room was small. A narrow bed, a dresser, a window overlooking the barn. The faint scent of lavender hung in the air, Margaret's, Clara guessed. Everything about this house was Margaret's. This was her sewing room, Sam said from the doorway. She spent most of her afternoons in here. Clara turned slowly, taking it in. "I feel like I'm stepping into someone else's life." "You are." Sam's voice was matter-of-fact. "Question is whether you're going to let that stop you." Clara looked at him, really looked, at the lines around his eyes, the gray in his beard, the way he held himself like he was bracing for a blow that might never come. You miss her, she said. Every damn day. Does it ever get better? Sam was quiet for a long moment. No, he said finally. But it gets different. The missing becomes part of you, like that scar on my face. You stop noticing it's there mostly. Then something reminds you, and it's like getting cut all over again. Clara thought about Thomas, about the way he used to kiss her forehead every morning, about the sound of his laugh. Yeah, she whispered. I know exactly what you mean. Sam nodded like that was all that needed saying. Get some sleep. Morning comes early on a ranch. He turned to leave. Sam. He stopped. I ain't cursed. Whatever people say. My husband died because some men wanted $37 more than they wanted to let him live. That ain't bad luck. That's just evil. Sam looked back at her. Something passed across his face, understanding maybe, or recognition. I know, he said simply. Get some rest, Mrs. Ashford. Then he was gone, and Clara was alone with her sleeping daughter and the ghost of a woman she'd never met. Clara didn't sleep that night. She tried. Lord knows she tried. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw Eleanor's face, heard the whispers, felt the cold of the crossroads seeping back into her bones. Lily slept peacefully beside her, wrapped in Daniel's old blankets, breathing slow and steady. Clara watched her daughter's face in the dim light, marveling at how perfect she was, how innocent, how completely unaware of the world that wanted to destroy them both. I'm going to keep you safe, Clara whispered. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to figure it out. I promise. Around midnight, she heard movement in the main room. Clara crept to the door and opened it a crack. Sam sat in the rocking chair, Margaret's chair, staring into the dying fire. He didn't move, didn't speak, just sat there, his hands loose on the armrests, his face carved from stone. He was keeping vigil. Clara realized it with a sudden sharp clarity. This was what he did every night. Sat in his dead wife's chair and watched the fire burn down to nothing. She almost went to him, almost opened the door and crossed the room and put her hand on his shoulder. But something stopped her. This grief was his private and sacred. She had no right to intrude. Instead, she closed the door silently and returned to her bed. They were two strangers in a house built for a family that no longer existed. Two broken people with nothing left but their damage and a thin thread of hope that maybe things could be different. Clara lay awake until dawn, listening to the creak of the rocking chair through the thin walls. Morning came gray and cold. Clara woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of wood being split outside. She dressed quickly in her ragged clothes, all she had, and emerged to find the main room empty. A pot of coffee sat warming on the stove, and beside it, a note in careful, blocky handwriting. Doing chores. Coffee's hot. Stay inside. Clara poured herself a cup and stood by the window watching Sam work. He moved with brutal efficiency, his axe rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Each swing sent chunks of wood flying. Each breath clouded white in the freezing air. He'd been at it for a while, judging by the pile of split logs beside him. Working out his demons, Clara thought. She recognized the urge. Had spent plenty of nights scrubbing floors until her hands bled, because it was better than thinking. The door opened and Sam came in, stamping snow from his boots. You're up. Hard to sleep with all that chopping. Something that might have been a smile flickered across his face. Reckon so. He hung his coat by the door next to Margaret's shawl. Clara noticed and moved to the stove. You hungry? I could eat. Can you cook? Clara raised an eyebrow. That a real question? I've been eating my own cooking for 3 years. It ain't pretty. Sam pulled out a chair and sat heavily. Margaret did all the kitchen work. I never learned much beyond boiling water and burning meat. Clara felt a small smile tugging at her lips. The first real smile in months. Show me where things are. I'll make breakfast. Now that's the best news I've had all year. They ate eggs and biscuits. Clara's biscuits were nowhere near her mother's, but Sam cleaned his plate twice and looked like he might cry from gratitude. Lord Almighty, he said, leaning back in his chair. I forgot food could taste like this. It's just biscuits. Best damn biscuits I've had since Margaret. He stopped, looked away. In a long time. Clara busied herself with washing dishes. Tell me about her, if you want, Margaret. The silence stretched. Clara thought maybe she'd overstepped. Then Sam spoke. She was from Virginia, came west with her family when she was 15. I met her at a barn dance in '72. I was 28, she was 19. His voice softened. Prettiest thing I'd ever seen. Hair like honey eyes, like the sky after a storm. I couldn't put two words together when she talked to me. How'd you win her over? I didn't. Sam chuckled low and rough. She won me, walked right up to me at that dance and said, "You're Sam Thornton, aren't you? The one who built that ranch up at Thornton Creek." I said yes. She said, "I'm going to marry you someday." Just like that. Like it was already decided. Clara turned from the dishes, smiling despite herself. And you believed her? Didn't have a choice. Margaret never said anything she didn't mean. Sam's eyes were distant. We were married 3 months later, built this house together, had Daniel 2 years after that. He paused. 11 years. That's all we got. 11 years and then she was gone. That's more than some people get. Yeah. Sam looked at her. How long were you married? 8 months. Clara dried her hands on a cloth. Thomas and I knew each other 6 weeks before the wedding. My father didn't approve, said I was too young, said Thomas didn't have enough money, but I didn't care. I loved him. She swallowed hard. We were just getting started, you know, making plans, talking about children, about the future. Then the robbery happened, and all those plans just... She made a gesture like something scattering to the wind. 8 months, Sam repeated. That ain't fair. No, it ain't. Clara met his eyes. But neither is 11 years. Neither is 7. Fair don't exist out here, does it? No, ma'am, it don't. They looked at each other across the kitchen, two strangers bound by the same cruel arithmetic of loss. Lily's cry broke the moment. Clara moved to pick up her daughter, grateful for the interruption. Some conversations cut too close to the bone. I need to wash some of her things, Clara said, not quite meeting Sam's eyes. She's only got the one set of clothes. There's a wash tub in the back. Water pumps just outside the door. Sam stood reaching for his coat. I've got to ride out and check the fence line. Back before dark. Sam. He paused at the door. Be careful. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or something warmer. Always am, he said. And then he was gone. Clara spent the day learning the house. She washed Lily's clothes and hung them by the fire. She scrubbed the kitchen until it shone. She swept the floors and beat the rugs and organized the pantry, which had been in chaos. All the while, she cataloged the evidence of Margaret's life. The recipe book tucked in a drawer filled with careful handwriting. The quilt on Sam's bed hand-stitched with tiny, perfect squares. The Bible on the mantel, its spine cracked from use. The china plates still sitting on their shelf, like they were waiting for a family to gather. Clara picked up one of the worn plates, turning it in her hands. I hope you don't mind, she said aloud, to the empty room, to the ghost that surely lingered here. I ain't trying to replace you, just trying to survive. No answer came. Of course it didn't. The dead didn't talk back. But somehow, standing there with Margaret's plate in her hands, Clara felt less alone than she had in months. Dusk was falling when Sam returned. Clara heard his horse first, then his boots on the porch. He came in stamping snow, his face red with cold. Something smells good. Stew. Found some vegetables in your root cellar, and that beef hanging in the smokehouse. Clara ladled soup into a bowl. Sit. Sam sat. He ate 3 bowls without stopping for breath. You're a miracle, he said, finally pushing back from the table. I mean that. A genuine miracle. I'm a woman who knows how to cook. That ain't the same thing. Out here it might be. Sam's eyes were warm, warmer than they'd been last night. You get settled all right today. I did. Clara hesitated. I hope you don't mind I cleaned up some. Organize things. Mind. Sam laughed. Mrs. Ashford, you could burn this place to the ground and rebuild it however you want. Long as there's biscuits at the end of it, I won't complain. Clara smiled, actually smiled. You're easy to please. I'm a simple man. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the fire crackling, Lily sleeping in her basket nearby. Outside, the wind had picked up, howling around the corners of the house. Storm coming, Sam said, glancing toward the window. Big one by the sound of it. Will the cattle be all right? They know to find shelter, smart animals. He turned back to her. Might be snowed in for a few days, though. Hope you don't mind being stuck with me. Clara looked at him, at this strange, gruff, generous man who'd pulled her from the edge of death. I can think of worse company, she said. Sam's eyes held hers for a moment. Then he looked away, reaching for his coffee. Get some sleep, Mrs. Ashford. Storm like this tomorrow's going to be a long day. Clara rose, gathering Lily from her basket. At the door to her room, she paused. Sam? Yeah? Thank you. For everything. I know I already said it, but I mean it. Sam nodded slowly. You're welcome, Clara. It was the first time he'd used her given name. She carried that warmth with her into the dark little room, and this time when she closed her eyes, sleep came easy. Chick. Neither of them heard the rider who passed below the ranch that night, fighting his way through the mounting storm toward town. Neither of them saw him stop at the crest of the hill, looking back at the light burning in Sam Thornton's window. And neither of them knew that by morning, word would reach Silver Falls about the stranger woman at Thornton Creek Ranch. The widow from the east, the one with the baby, and the bad luck, and the reputation that followed her like a shadow. Judge Cornelius Wade would be very interested in this news. Very interested indeed. The storm hit sometime after midnight. Clara woke to the sound of the wind screaming against the walls like something alive and angry. Lily stirred beside her, whimpering, and Clara pulled her daughter close. Hush now, it's just weather. We're safe. But even as she said it, she could feel the house shuddering. The window rattled in its frame. Somewhere outside, something crashed, a tree branch maybe, or a piece of roofing torn loose. Clara lay in the dark, listening to her own heartbeat. Then she heard footsteps. Sam's voice came through the door. You all right in there? We're fine. Clara sat up, pulling a blanket around her shoulders. That noise? Barn door came loose. I've got to go secure it before the horses panic. Clara was on her feet before she realized she'd moved. She opened the door to find Sam pulling on his coat, his face grim in the lamplight. You can't go out in this. Ain't got a choice. Those horses are worth more than this house. He grabbed his hat from the peg. Stay inside. Keep the fire going. I'll be back quick as I can. Sam. But he was already gone. The door slamming shut behind him. Clara stood in the middle of the room, her heart pounding, listening to the storm swallow him whole. The minutes crawled by. Clara fed the fire, checked on Lily, paced the length of the room and back again. Every gust of wind made her flinch. Every creak of the house made her imagine the worst. She thought about Thomas, about how he'd gone out one morning like any other morning and never come back, how she'd kissed him goodbye without knowing it was the last time. Don't you dare, she whispered to the storm. Don't you take this one too. The door burst open. Sam staggered in, covered in snow, his face raw from the wind. He slammed the door behind him and leaned against it, breathing hard. Barn secure. He pulled off his gloves with his teeth. Horses are spooked, but safe. Clara didn't think. She just moved, crossed the room in 3 steps and wrapped her arms around him. Sam went rigid. For one terrible moment, Clara thought she'd made a mistake. Then his arms came around her, slow and uncertain, like he'd forgotten how. Hey now. His voice was rough. I'm fine. Just a little cold. You scared me. Clara's face was pressed against his chest. She could feel his heart pounding. "Don't do that again." "Can't promise that. Ranch work don't stop for storms." Clara pulled back, suddenly aware of what she'd done. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have—" "Don't apologize." Sam's eyes were strange, soft in a way she hadn't seen before. "Been a long time since anyone worried about me coming home." They stood there too close, the fire crackling behind them and the storm raging outside. Clara could feel the cold radiating off his clothes, could see the ice crystals melting in his beard. "You need to get warm," she said, stepping back. "I'll make coffee." "Clara." She stopped. "Thank you for worrying." Clara didn't trust herself to speak. She just nodded and fled to the kitchen. The storm lasted 3 days. 3 days of being trapped together in that house while the snow piled up past the windows. 3 days of shared meals and careful conversations and silences that grew more comfortable with each passing hour. Clara learned things about Sam. Small things mostly. The way he took his coffee black, no sugar. The way he hummed when he thought no one was listening, old hymns his mother had taught him. The way his hands never stopped moving, always finding something to fix or build or clean. He learned things about her too. That she'd been a school teacher before she married Thomas. That her father had wanted her to be a doctor like him, but the medical schools wouldn't accept women. That she could recite Shakespeare from memory and curse in French when she was angry. French. Sam had raised an eyebrow at that. Where'd a Boston girl learn French cursing? My grandmother was from New Orleans. She taught me all the important words. Such as, Clara told him. Sam laughed so hard he nearly choked on his coffee. It was the first time she'd heard him really laugh. The sound cracked something open in her chest. On the second day, Lily took her first steps. Clara had set her down on the rug by the fire, surrounded by pillows in case she toppled. The baby had been pulling herself up on furniture for weeks, but always falling before she got anywhere. This time was different. Lily grabbed the edge of Sam's chair, hauled herself upright, and just walked. 3 wobbling steps toward Clara before her legs gave out. "Sam?" Clara scooped Lily up, tears streaming down her face. "Did you see that she walked?" Sam was already there, kneeling beside them. "I saw." His voice was thick. "I saw Clara." Lily reached for him, babbling happily. Without thinking, Clara handed her over. Sam held the baby like she was made of glass. "Hey there, little one, look at you. Walking like you own the place." Lily grabbed his beard and tugged. Sam winced, but didn't pull away. "She likes you," Clara said softly. "She's got bad taste in men." "No." Clara watched them together, this rough, scarred rancher cradling her daughter like she was precious. "I don't think she does." Sam looked up. Their eyes met. Something passed between them, unspoken but undeniable. Then Lily yanked his beard again, and the moment shattered into laughter. On the 3rd day, the storm broke. Clara woke to silence. Real silence, not the muffled quiet of snow falling. She crept to the window and pushed aside the curtain. The world outside was white and still. The snow had drifted up past the porch rails, burying the lower windows completely. But the sky was clear pale blue, stretching to the horizon. "Beautiful, ain't it?" She turned. Sam stood in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. "Deadly beautiful," Clara said, accepting the cup he offered. "How deep is it?" 4 feet, maybe 5 in the drifts. Gonna take most of the day to dig out." Sam joined her at the window, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "But the worst is over." Clara sipped her coffee, watching the light change as the sun climbed higher. "What happens now?" "Now I dig out the barn and check on the cattle, make sure nothing froze that shouldn't have." Sam's voice was matter-of-fact, but she heard something else underneath. Reluctance, maybe. "Then I'll need to ride into town, get supplies, let folks know we survived." Clara's stomach tightened. "Folks?" "Silver Falls is a small town. People talk." Sam turned to look at her. "Word's probably already spread that you're here. The storm just delayed the questions. And you're ready for those questions?" "I'm ready to tell anyone who asks that I've got a housekeeper for the winter. Nothing more, nothing less." He paused. Unless you want me to say different. Clara's heart stuttered. What would different sound like? Sam was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. I've been thinking about what happens when spring comes, about you and Lily leaving. He set down his coffee cup. I find I don't much care for that picture. Sam, I ain't asking for anything. He held up a hand. I know it's too soon. Know you've got your own grief to carry. But I wanted you to know if you wanted to stay longer than spring, the offer's open. Not as my housekeeper. As... He stopped, rubbed the back of his neck. Hell, I'm no good at this. Clara felt tears prickling behind her eyes. As what, Sam? As whatever you want to be. He finally met her gaze. I ain't got fancy words, but I know that these 3 days being snowed in with you and Lily, I've felt more alive than I have in 3 years, and I don't want to lose that. Clara set down her own cup. Her hands were trembling. I feel it too, she whispered. But I'm scared. Of what? Of everything. Of trusting again. Of losing again. She wrapped her arms around herself. Every time I let myself hope, something tears it away. What if that happens here? What if I ruin this, like I ruined everything else? Clara. Sam stepped closer, not touching but near enough that she could feel his warmth. You didn't ruin anything. You got dealt a bad hand, that's all. Doesn't mean the next hand will be the same. You don't know that. No, I don't. His eyes were steady on hers. But I know that hiding from life don't stop death from finding you. Margaret taught me that. She lived every day like it was a gift, right up until the end. His voice cracked slightly. I forgot that lesson for a while. Buried myself in work and grief and silence. But you're reminding me. Clara couldn't speak. Her throat was too tight. We don't have to decide anything today, Sam continued. Or tomorrow, or next month. I just wanted you to know that the door's open. Whenever you're ready to walk through it. He turned away, then reaching for his coat. I'm gonna start digging out. You need anything from town when I go? Clara found her voice. Sam. He paused. Thank you. For saying all that. For being honest. She swallowed hard. I'm not ready to answer yet. But I will be. Someday. Sam nodded slowly. Someday's good enough for me. Then he was gone, and Clara was alone with a sleeping baby, and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. The ride to Silver Falls took Sam most of the morning. The snow was deep, but the sky stayed clear, and his horse knew the way well enough to navigate the drifts. Sam had made this trip 100 times before, maybe 1,000. But today felt different. Today, he had a reason to come back. Silver Falls wasn't much to look at: a main street with a general store, a saloon, a church, and a handful of other buildings clinging to existence against the frontier. Population maybe 300 on a good day, less when the mines weren't producing. Sam tied his horse outside the general store and went in. Martha Chen stood behind the counter, a tiny Chinese woman with iron gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd run this store for 20 years, ever since her husband died in a mining accident, and everyone in the territory knew better than to cross her. Sam Thornton. She looked him up and down. Heard you had company during the storm. Sam felt his jaw tighten. News travels fast. Deputy Finch passed through 3 nights ago. Said he saw a light in your window, a woman's silhouette. Martha's expression was unreadable. Whole town's been speculating ever since. Let them speculate. They will, with or without your permission. Martha began pulling items from the shelves: flour, sugar, coffee, salt. She knew his usual order by heart. Who is she? Sam hesitated. Martha had been Margaret's closest friend, had been one of the few who showed up to help after the funeral, who didn't treat Sam like he was broken beyond repair. Her name's Clara Ashford, widow from back east. I found her half frozen at the crossroads with her baby. Martha's hands stilled. The crossroads. She would have died if I'd left her there. So you brought her home? It wasn't a question. Martha resumed packing his supplies. And now she's staying. Through the winter, maybe longer. Martha looked at him then, really looked in that way she had that made him feel like she could see right through his skin to whatever was underneath. "You're different," she said finally. "Something in your eyes. I haven't seen that in a long time." "Martha, don't explain yourself to me, Sam Thornton. You don't owe me anything." She tied off the supply bundle and pushed it across the counter. "But be careful. There's talk. Not just gossip, real talk. Judge Wade's been asking questions about you. About your ranch." Sam's blood went cold. "Wade? What kind of questions?" "The kind that usually end with someone losing their land." Martha's voice dropped. "He's been buying up properties all over the territory. Anyone with debt, anyone with trouble, he finds a way to take what's theirs. Legal-like, but just barely. I don't have debt. Maybe not. But you've got something he wants." Martha glanced around the empty store, then leaned closer. "That water rights claim of yours. The one that controls Thornton Creek. Wade's been trying to get his hands on it for years. With your wife gone and no heir. I've got an heir." The words came out before Sam could stop them. Martha's eyebrows rose. "The baby," Sam said quietly. "Lily. I'm going to adopt her. Make her legal." Martha stared at him. "Sam, I know what I'm doing. Do you—" Her voice was gentle but firm. "You've known this woman, what, a week? Long enough to know she's good. Long enough to know that little girl deserves better than what the world's given her so far." Sam picked up the supplies. "Long enough to know I don't want to be alone anymore." Martha was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and patted his weathered hand. "Margaret would approve," she said softly. "She always did say you needed someone to take care of. Margaret was smarter than me about most things." "About everything." Martha almost smiled. "Go home, Sam. Take care of your women. But watch your back around Wade. That man's got snake eyes and a devil's patience." Sam nodded and headed for the door. "Sam." He turned. "Bring her to church on Sunday. Let folks see she's respectable." Martha's expression was shrewd. Harder to spread lies about someone people have actually met. She might not want to. Ask her anyway. Sometimes the best defense is showing up. Sam thought about that all the way home. Clara was waiting for him on the porch. She'd dug out the steps somehow, probably using the shovel he kept by the door, and stood there with Lily on her hip, watching him ride up. The afternoon sun caught her hair, turning it copper and gold. Sam's heart did something strange in his chest. Something it hadn't done in a very long time. "You're back early," Clara called as he dismounted. "Roads weren't as bad as I thought." Sam tied off his horse and grabbed the supplies. "Got everything we need for the next couple weeks." Clara fell into step beside him as he walked toward the house. "How was town?" "Small, nosy." Sam pushed open the door. "Already asking questions about you." "I figured." Clara's voice was carefully neutral. "What did you tell them?" "That you're my housekeeper. That I found you half dead and did the Christian thing." Sam set the supplies on the table. "Also, that I'm planning to adopt Lily." Clara went very still. "You told them what?" "Martha Chen. She runs the general store. She mentioned that Judge Wade's been sniffing around my property, looking for ways to take it." Sam turned to face her. "If I've got an heir, a legal heir, it makes things more complicated for him. Harder to swoop in if something happens to me." "Sam, you can't. I've been thinking about it since the storm." He cut her off gently. "Lily needs a father. A real one, not just someone who gives her a place to sleep. And He stopped, swallowed. "I lost my son. I've got a hole in me that ain't ever gonna heal. But maybe I can make room for someone else in there, if you'll let me." Clara's eyes were wet. "You barely know us." "I know enough." Sam stepped closer. "I know that little girl's got more fight in her than half the men in this territory. I know her mama's brave and smart and kind, even when the world's given her every reason not to be." He reached out, slowly touched Clara's cheek. I know I haven't felt this way since Margaret and I thought that part of me was dead forever. A tear slipped down Clara's face. What way? Like I've got something worth protecting again. Clara closed her eyes. Sam. You don't have to answer now, about any of it. His thumb brushed away her tear. But I want you to know where I stand. No secrets. No games. Just truth. When Clara opened her eyes, something had changed in them. The fear was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that looked almost like hope. Okay, she whispered. Okay, what? Okay, I hear you. Okay, I understand where you stand. She took a shaky breath. And okay, I'll go to church with you on Sunday, if you think it'll help. Sam blinked. How'd you know about that? Because it's what I would do. Show people I'm not what they think. Clara almost smiled. My mother always said the best way to fight gossip is with grace. Your mother sounds like a wise woman. She was. The pain in Clara's voice was old but deep. She died when I was 12. Consumption. I'm sorry. Don't be. She taught me what I needed to know before she went. Clara shifted Lily on her hip. She taught me that you can't control what people say about you. You can only control who you actually are. Sam nodded slowly. Sunday it is then. Sunday it is. They stood there in the fading afternoon light, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their lives. Neither of them knew what the future held. Neither of them could guarantee it wouldn't all fall apart. But for the first time in a long time, they were both willing to try. Sunday came cold and clear. Clara dressed in the best clothes she had, which wasn't saying much. Her traveling dress was worn and faded mended in a dozen places. But it was clean, and it was respectable, and it would have to do. Sam had hitched the wagon, and was waiting outside when she emerged with Lily. You look nice, he said, helping her up onto the seat. I look poor. You look honest. That's worth more. The ride to town took an hour. Clara spent most of it fighting nerves, bouncing Lily on her knee, and trying to remember how to smile like she meant it. What if they hate me? She asked as the church steeple came into view. What if they've already decided I'm worthless? Then they're fools, and we don't need their approval. Sam's jaw was set. But most folks are decent enough when you give them a chance. It's just a few rotten ones that spoil the barrel. Who are the rotten ones? Judge Wade, for starters. Man's been trying to buy up half the territory. Uses the law like a weapon. Sam spat over the side of the wagon. And whoever's been spreading tales about you before you even got here. Someone's been busy. Clara's stomach tightened. What kind of tales? The usual. Bad luck woman. Cursed widow. Probably came from wherever you were before you got here. Eleanor. Clara felt cold certainty settle in her gut. Her mother-in-law had connections everywhere. Money talked, and Eleanor Ashford had plenty of it. The lies will follow me forever, Clara said quietly. No matter where I go. Then we'll fight them forever. Sam's hand found hers on the seat between them. Together. The church was small but full. Every pew held families in their Sunday best farmers and miners and shopkeepers with their wives and children. Heads turned as Sam walked in with Clara beside him, Lily balanced on her hip. The whispers started immediately. Clara kept her chin up and her back straight. She'd survived worse than whispers. She'd survived being thrown out of her home, being called a whore, being left to die in the snow. A few church busybodies weren't going to break her. Sam led her to a pew near the front, his usual spot, she guessed. Martha Chen was already seated nearby, and she gave Clara a small nod of acknowledgement. The service itself was a blur. Clara heard the hymns, heard the preacher's voice rising and falling, but none of it really registered. She was too aware of the eyes on her back, the murmured conversations just out of earshot. When it was finally over, Sam stood and offered her his arm. Ready? No, but let's do it anyway. They walked out into the cold sunshine, and immediately people swarmed around them. "Sam, heard you had a rough storm up at the ranch. Who's this pretty lady you've been hiding? Is that a baby? Whose baby is that?" Clara fielded the questions as best she could, keeping her answers short and polite. Yes, she was staying at Mr. Thornton's ranch. Yes, she was a widow. Yes, Lily was her daughter. No, she didn't have family in the area. Yes, she was from back east. No, she'd rather not discuss the details of her husband's death. Through it all, Sam stayed by her side. A solid, silent presence. His hand never left the small of her back. Then a new voice cut through the crowd. "Well, well, Sam Thornton, with a woman on his arm. Never thought I'd see the day." Clara turned. A man was approaching, tall and thin, with a face like a hatchet, and eyes that made her skin crawl. He wore a fine suit, too fine for a frontier church, and carried himself like he owned everything he looked at. "Wade." Sam's voice went flat, cold. "Didn't expect to see you at services." "A man can find religion, can't he?" Wade's smile didn't reach his eyes. "And who is this lovely creature?" "Mrs. Clara Ashford." Clara met his gaze directly. "And you are?" "Judge Cornelius Wade, at your service." He took her hand before she could stop him, pressing his lips to her knuckles. "I've heard so much about you, Mrs. Ashford, the mysterious woman at Thornton Creek." "Nothing mysterious about me, just a widow trying to survive." "Aren't we all?" Wade's eyes flickered to Lily. "And this must be the child, Thomas Ashford's daughter, if the rumors are true." Clara's blood turned to ice. "How do you know my husband's name?" "I make it my business to know things, Mrs. Ashford." Wade's smile widened. "A judge must be informed about the people in his territory, especially ones with, shall we say, complicated histories." "Clara's history ain't none of your concern." Sam stepped forward, putting himself between them. "And neither is mine." "Everything in this territory is my concern, Sam. You know that." Wade straightened his coat. "I do hope you'll both be careful. The frontier is a dangerous place for people without protection." "We don't need your kind of protection." "Everyone needs protection eventually." Wade tipped his hat. "Mrs. Ashford, a pleasure. I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again." He walked away, and Clara finally let herself breathe. "That's Wade," she whispered. "That's him. He knows things about me, about Thomas. He knows things about everyone." Sam's jaw was tight. "It's how he operates. Digs up dirt, uses it as leverage." Clara watched Wade's retreating back, her heart hammering. "What does he want with us?" "My land, my water rights, maybe more." Sam turned to face her. "But I won't let him have any of it. Not the ranch, not the creek, and sure as hell not you." Clara looked up at him. At this man who'd saved her life and opened his home and stood beside her against an enemy he'd barely begun to explain. "I believe you," she said, and for the first time since Thomas died she actually meant it. The days after church were quiet, but Clara could feel the storm building beneath the surface. Sam worked harder than usual, spending long hours with the cattle, and returning after dark, with exhaustion carved into his face. He didn't talk about Wade, didn't mention the encounter at all. But Clara saw the way his jaw tightened whenever someone rode past on the road below. She saw the way he checked his rifle every night before bed. He was preparing for something. She just didn't know what. A week after Sunday service, Clara was hanging laundry by the fire when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Her hands stilled on the wet fabric. "Sam?" No answer. He'd ridden out to check the north fence line 3 hours ago. Too soon for him to be back. Clara set down the shirt she'd been wringing and moved to the window. A single rider was coming up the drive, but it wasn't Sam's black horse. This one was gray smaller, moving at a cautious pace. She grabbed the rifle from its place by the door. The rider stopped at the porch steps and dismounted. Clara's finger found the trigger. "Mrs. Ashford." A woman's voice. Clara blinked, adjusting her grip on the rifle. "Who's asking?" "My name is Eliza Crowfeather. Martha Chen sent me." The woman stepped into view, and Clara's breath caught. She was old, 60 at least, maybe more, with iron gray hair braided down her back and skin the color of worn leather. Her face was a map of lines, each one telling a story Clara couldn't read. But her eyes were sharp, alive. They took in Clara and the rifle with equal measures of assessment. "Martha said you might need help," Eliza continued. "Said there's a baby here. That right?" Clara lowered the rifle slowly. "There is. My daughter Lily. Mind if I come in cold out here for an old woman's bones?" Clara hesitated, but something about Eliza's steady gaze made her step back and open the door wider. "Coffee's on the stove." "That'll do nicely." Inside, Eliza moved through the house like she'd been there before. She hung her coat on the peg by the door right next to Margaret's shawl and settled into a chair by the fire without being invited. "You've done good work here," she said, looking around. "Place feels alive again." "You knew Margaret. Delivered her baby." Eliza's voice was matter-of-fact. "Held her hand when she passed. Washed her body for burial." She accepted the coffee Clara offered. "I know this house better than most." Clara sank into the chair across from her. "Why are you here?" "Martha's worried. Says Judge Wade's been asking questions about you, about your husband, about that baby." Eliza's dark eyes fixed on Clara's face. "She thinks you might be in trouble. Are you?" Clara's throat tightened. "I don't know. Maybe. Tell me." So Clara told her. Everything. Thomas and the robbery, Eleanor's accusations, the whispers that followed her from town to town, Sam finding her at the crossroads, the storm, the church. Wade's smile that didn't reach his eyes. Eliza listened without interrupting. When Clara finished, the old woman was quiet for a long moment. "Wade's dangerous," she said finally. "More dangerous than you know. Sam said he wants the water rights. He wants more than that. He wants control. Over the land, over the people, over everything." Eliza set down her coffee cup. "I've watched him work for 15 years. He finds people's weaknesses and exploits them. He twists the law until it does what he wants. He's patient, like a spider." "What's his weakness?" Eliza's lips curved. "Smart question. Most people don't think to ask that." "I'm not most people." "No, you're not." Eliza leaned forward. "Wade's weakness is his pride. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else. Thinks nobody can touch him because he's got the law on his side." She paused. "But the law works both ways, Mrs. Ashford, if you're smart enough to use it." "I was a school teacher. I don't know anything about law." "You know how to read. You know how to think. That's more than most folks around here." Eliza stood moving to the window. "Wade's been buying up land all over the territory. Legal-like, but just barely. He finds people with debt, people with trouble, and he squeezes until they sell for pennies on the dollar. Sam doesn't have debt." "No, but he's got you." Eliza turned to face her. "A widow with a questionable reputation living alone with an unmarried man. That's ammunition, Mrs. Ashford. Wade can use that to damage Sam's standing in the community. Make people doubt him. Turn allies into enemies." Clara felt cold. "So I am hurting him, just by being here." "You could be, or you could be his greatest weapon." Eliza crossed the room and sat beside her. "It depends on what you do next." "What should I do?" "Marry him." Clara's breath caught. "What?" "You heard me. Marry Sam Thornton. Make it legal. Make it proper. Make it so Wade can't use your reputation against either of you." Eliza's voice was calm, practical. "I've seen the way he looks at you. The way you look at him. Don't tell me you haven't thought about it." Clara's face flushed. "I've thought about a lot of things." "Then stop thinking and start doing, before Wade does it for you." The door opened. Sam stepped in, stamping snow from his boots, and froze when he saw Eliza. "Eliza." His voice was guarded. "Didn't expect to see you." "I imagine not." Eliza rose, gathering her coat. "I was just leaving. Had some things to discuss with Mrs. Ashford." "What kind of things?" "Women's things." Eliza smiled, but there was steel underneath. Nothing you need to worry about, yet. She was gone before Sam could respond, riding off down the drive on her gray horse. Sam watched her go, then turned to Clara. What did she really want? Clara met his eyes. She wanted to warn me about Wade. What about him? She says he's going to use me against you, my reputation, the fact that we're not married. Clara's voice dropped. She says the only way to protect both of us is to make it legal. Sam went very still. Make what legal? Us. The word hung in the air between them. Clara watched Sam's face, searching for any sign of what he was thinking, but his expression was unreadable. Is that what you want? He asked finally. I don't know what I want. Clara stood wrapping her arms around herself. A month ago, I was dying in the snow. Now I'm being told to marry a man I barely know to protect him from a judge who wants to steal his land. She laughed bitterly. My life stopped making sense a long time ago. Clara. She turned. Sam crossed the room in 3 steps. He took her hands in his rough palms, warm against her cold fingers. Forget Wade. Forget Eliza. Forget all of it. His gray eyes held hers. If there was no threat, no pressure, no one telling you what to do, what would you want? Clara's throat ached. I'd want to stop being afraid. Of what? Of everything. Of losing Lily. Of losing this place. She swallowed hard. Of losing you. Sam's hands tightened on hers. You're not going to lose me. You can't promise that. No, I can't. His voice was rough. But I can promise that whatever comes, we face it together. Whether that means marriage or not. Whether the whole town turns against us or not. I ain't letting you go, Clara. Not now. Not ever. Clara felt tears spilling down her cheeks. Sam, I love you. The words hit her like a thunderclap. She stared at him, unable to speak, unable to breathe. I know it's too fast. Sam continued, his voice cracking slightly. I know we've only had a few weeks, but I've lived long enough to know when something's real. And this what I feel when I'm with you, it's the most real thing I've felt since Margaret died. You loved her so much. I did. I still do. Sam's eyes were wet now. But she's gone, Clara. She ain't coming back. And I've spent 3 years living like a ghost in my own house waiting to die, so I could be with her again. He cupped her face in his hands. Then you came. You and Lily. And suddenly I wanted to live again. Clara closed her eyes. I don't know if I'm ready. Then we wait. We wait until you are. Sam pressed his forehead to hers. But I needed you to know. Needed you to hear it from me before Wade or anyone else tried to twist it into something ugly. It's not ugly. Clara opened her eyes. It's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever said to me. They stood there forehead to forehead, breathing the same air. Clara could feel Sam's heartbeat through his hands, could feel her own answering it. Ask me again, she whispered. Ask you what I want. If there was no threat, no pressure, no one telling me what to do. Sam pulled back slightly, searching her face. What do you want, Clara? She took a breath, let it out slowly. I want you. Sam's breath caught. I want this house. I want to watch Lily grow up here. I want to fall asleep listening to your heartbeat and wake up to your face every morning. Clara's voice shook, but she didn't stop. I want to stop running. I want to stop being afraid. I want to believe that good things can happen to people like us. Clara. I love you too. The words came out in a rush. I don't know when it happened. Maybe in the storm when you held me all night. Maybe when you built that cradle for Lily. Maybe the first moment I saw your eyes and knew you wouldn't hurt me. She laughed through her tears. I love you, Sam Thornton. And I'm terrified, but I love you anyway. Sam kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't careful. It was desperate and hungry and full of 3 years of loneliness meeting 8 months of grief. Clara grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer, and Sam's arms wrapped around her like he was afraid she'd disappear. When they finally broke apart, both gasping for breath, Sam rested his forehead against hers again. "Marry me," he said. "Not because of Wade. Not because of what anyone says. Because I love you, and I want to spend whatever time I've got left on this earth with you." Clara smiled through her tears. "Yes. Yes. Yes. I'll marry you." She kissed him again quickly. "But we do it right. In the church in front of everyone. Let them see that we've got nothing to hide." Sam's face split into a grin, the first real smile she'd ever seen on him. "Martha's gonna lose her mind. Martha's gonna say she told you so." They laughed together, holding each other in the middle of the room, while the fire crackled and Lily slept peacefully in her basket. For one perfect moment, nothing else existed. No Wade, no threats, no past. Just the two of them and the future they were building. The moment shattered 2 days later. Sam had ridden into town to post the banns and arrange for Reverend Miller to perform the ceremony. Clara stayed at the ranch with Lily, humming to herself as she kneaded bread, happier than she'd been in years. She didn't hear the horses until they were already in the yard. "Mrs. Ashford." The voice was unfamiliar, male, official sounding. Clara wiped her hands on her apron and moved to the window. 3 men sat on horseback outside. 2 of them wore deputy badges. The third was Judge Cornelius Wade. Clara's blood turned to ice. She grabbed the rifle and opened the door, stepping onto the porch with the gun held across her body. Not aimed at anyone, but visible. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Wade smiled that snake smile of his. "Mrs. Ashford, so good to see you again. Is Mr. Thornton at home?" "He's in town. Whatever business you've got, you can conduct with me." "I'm afraid that's not possible." Wade produced a folded paper from his coat. "I have here a court order requiring Mr. Thornton to appear before the territorial magistrate regarding a dispute over his water rights. Failure to appear will result in default judgment against him." Clara's hands tightened on the rifle. "What kind of dispute?" "A claim has been filed asserting that Mr. Thornton's original survey was fraudulent, that the water rights he claims were actually purchased by another party prior to his filing." Wade's eyes glittered. "If the claim is upheld, he'll lose everything from the creek to the North Ridge." "That's impossible. Sam's had those rights for 20 years. 20 years of possession doesn't matter if the original claim was invalid." Wade tucked the paper back into his coat. "The hearing is in 3 days. I suggest Mr. Thornton secure legal representation, although I doubt he'll find anyone willing to go against me in my own courtroom." He tipped his hat, still smiling that terrible smile. "Good day, Mrs. Ashford. Give Mr. Thornton my regards." They rode away, leaving Clara standing on the porch with shaking hands and a heart full of dread. Sam returned an hour later, whistling as he dismounted. The whistle died when he saw Clara's face. "What happened?" She told him. Every word Wade had said, every threat implied. Sam listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each sentence. "That son of a bitch," he said when she finished. "He's making his move. Can he do this? Can he really take your land? If he's got a friendly judge and he is the judge, he can do whatever he wants." Sam paced the length of the porch. "I need to see those original documents. Margaret was the one who filed all the paperwork back in '68. Everything should be in the desk." They spent the rest of the afternoon tearing through drawers and boxes, searching for the survey papers and deed filings that proved Sam's claim. Clara's organizational skills proved invaluable. She created systems, sorted documents by date, cross-referenced everything until a clear picture emerged. "Here." She held up a yellowed paper. "The original survey from 1868, signed and witnessed. And here, another document. The filing receipt from the territorial office, dated March 15th, 1868. Sam took both papers, studying them. "This should be enough. If Wade's claiming someone filed before me, these prove otherwise. But he's the judge, Sam. He can rule however he wants. Not if I get these to the territorial governor. Helena's 3 days' ride, but if I leave tomorrow..." That's exactly what he wants. Clara grabbed his arm. Don't you see, he's trying to get you away from the ranch, away from me. He knows you'll go running off to Helena, and while you're gone... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Sam's face went pale. He'll come after you. Or the ranch, or both. Clara's mind was racing. We need another way, someone who can take these documents to Helena while you stay here. Who everyone in Silver Falls is scared of Wade. They won't risk going against him. Clara thought of Eliza, of Martha, of the community that had watched her with suspicious eyes at church but hadn't turned away entirely. Then we give them a reason to stop being scared, she said slowly. We show them that Wade can be beaten, that his power isn't absolute. How? The hearing. You said it's in 3 days. That's right. Then we use those 3 days. Clara's voice strengthened. We find everyone Wade has hurt. Every family he's squeezed. Every rancher he's cheated. We get them to testify. We make this about more than just your water rights. We make it about Wade himself. Sam stared at her. You want to take on a territorial judge in his own courtroom. I want to take on a bully who's been terrorizing good people for years. Clara lifted her chin. I've spent 8 months running from bullies. I'm done running. Clara, if this goes wrong, then it goes wrong, but at least we'll have tried. She took his hands. You told me we'd face whatever comes together. Did you mean it? Sam's jaw tightened. You know I did. Then let's face this, together. For a long moment, Sam just looked at her, at this woman who'd come into his life, half dead and desperate, and was now standing in front of him, ready to wage war against the most powerful man in the territory. Margaret would have liked you, he said finally. Clara blinked. What? She had that same fire in her, that same stubborn refusal to quit. Sam pulled her close. I think she sent you to me. I really do. Clara pressed her face against his chest. Then let's not waste the gift. They started that night. Sam rode to Martha Chen's store while Clara stayed with Lily. Martha listened to everything, then nodded once. I know at least 6 families Wade has cheated. I'll talk to them tonight. Eliza arrived at dawn the next morning, having heard through whatever mysterious channels she used. She brought news of 3 more ranchers willing to speak out. Wade took my brother's land in '79, she said. Claimed it for back taxes that weren't even owed. My brother died 6 months later, broken and poor. I've been waiting 15 years for a chance to make that right. By the evening before the hearing, they had 11 witnesses. 11 people with stories of corruption and abuse. 11 voices ready to speak the truth, no matter the cost. But Wade had his own preparations. Deputy Finch came to the ranch that night, alone and nervous. I shouldn't be here, he said, standing on the porch and refusing to come inside. But I owe Sam. He helped my family when my father was sick. What do you know, Finch? Sam asked. Wade's brought in men from outside the territory. 3 of them, maybe 4. Hired guns. Finch's voice dropped. He's not planning to let this go to a fair hearing, Sam. He's planning to make sure you never make it to the courthouse. Clara's hand found Sam's in the darkness. Thank you, Sam said quietly, for warning us. I wish I could do more. Finch mounted his horse. Watch your back tomorrow, both of you. He disappeared into the night, leaving Sam and Clara alone with the knowledge that tomorrow might be their last day on Earth. Sam. Clara's voice was steady, but her heart was pounding. If something happens, nothing's going to happen. If it does, she turned to face him. Promise me you'll take care of Lily. Promise me she'll have a home no matter what. Sam cupped her face in his hands. I promise. But I'm also promising you that we're going to walk into that courthouse tomorrow, and we're going to walk out together. Wade doesn't get to win. Not this time. Clara kissed him, soft and slow and full of everything she couldn't say. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Sam pulled her close. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we fight. But neither of them slept that night. They sat together on the porch wrapped in blankets, watching the stars wheel overhead. Two people who had found each other against impossible odds facing an uncertain dawn. Whatever came next, they would face it together, just like they'd promised. Dawn came cold and gray, painting the sky the color of old bruises. Clara dressed in silence, her fingers trembling as she buttoned her best dress. Lily was still sleeping in her basket, blissfully unaware of what the day would bring. Clara bent and kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing in that sweet baby smell. "Mama's coming back," she whispered. "I promise." Sam was already outside hitching the wagon. He'd strapped on his gun belt, something Clara had never seen him wear before, and his rifle lay across the wagon seat within easy reach. When he saw her face, he tried to smile. "Ready?" "No." Clara climbed up beside him. "But let's go anyway." They rode in silence for the first mile. The road stretched empty before them, flanked by snow-covered fields and dark pine forests. Every shadow could hide a threat. Every gust of wind could carry danger. "If shooting starts," Sam said quietly, "you get down and stay down. Don't try to help. Don't try to run. Just get low and wait for it to be over." "Sam, promise me, Clara." She looked at his face, at the hard set of his jaw, the tension in his shoulders. He was scared. She'd never seen him scared before. "I promise," she said. They made it another 2 miles before the trouble found them. 3 riders emerged from the tree line ahead, blocking the road. Clara recognized none of them strangers with hard faces and guns on their hips. Wade's hired men. Sam pulled the wagon to a stop. "Morning, gentlemen." His voice was calm, easy, like he was greeting neighbors instead of killers. "Something I can help you with?" The lead rider, a tall man with a scar across his nose, nudged his horse forward. "Sam Thornton. That's right. Judge Wade sends his regards, says he's real sorry, but the hearing's been canceled. Has it now. Court's closed today. Some kind of emergency." The man's hand drifted toward his pistol. "Best if you just turn that wagon around and head on home." Sam's fingers tightened on the reins. Clara could feel the tension radiating off him like heat. "And if I don't, then we've got a problem." The man smiled, showing teeth stained with tobacco. "And problems have a way of getting solved out here, permanently." Clara's heart was hammering against her ribs. She thought of Lily alone at the ranch with Martha watching over her. Thought of the life she and Sam had barely begun to build. Then she thought of every person who'd ever turned away from her, every door that had slammed in her face, every whisper and curse and accusation. No more. She stood up in the wagon. "You want a problem?" Her voice came out stronger than she expected. "I'll give you a problem." The riders stared at her. "My name is Clara Ashford. 8 months ago, my husband was murdered. Since then, I've been beaten, robbed, thrown out of every town I tried to stop in, and left to die in a blizzard with my baby daughter." She took a step forward, standing on the wagon's footboard. "I survived all of that. You think I'm scared of 3 men on horses?" The lead rider's smile faltered. "This ain't your business, lady." "The hell it ain't." Clara's hands were shaking, but her voice held steady. "That man sitting beside me saved my life. He gave me and my daughter a home when no one else would, and now some snake in a fancy suit is trying to take everything from him because he's too much of a coward to fight fair. Lady, I'm not finished." Clara took another step right to the edge of the wagon. "You boys have a choice. You can ride away right now and nobody gets hurt, or you can try to stop us, and I swear to God Almighty, I will make it my life's mission to see every single one of you hang." Silence. The wind whistled through the pines. Then from behind them came the sound of more hoofbeats. Clara whirled. Her heart stopped. A dozen riders were coming up the road. Martha Chen was in the lead, her gray hair streaming behind her. Eliza rode beside her, along with faces Clara recognized from church. Farmers, miners, shopkeepers, all of them armed. "Morning, Sam." Martha pulled her horse up beside the wagon. "Thought you might need some company. Sam let out a breath Clara hadn't realized he was holding. "Martha, you beautiful woman." "Save the flattery." Martha turned her sharp eyes on Wade's hired men. "You boys still feel like causing trouble." The lead rider looked at his companions, looked at the armed crowd gathering behind the wagon, did some quick math. "This ain't over," he said. "No," Clara replied. "It ain't, but today it ends." The three riders wheeled their horses and disappeared back into the trees. Clara's knees went weak and she sat down hard on the wagon seat. "That," Sam said slowly, "was the bravest thing I've ever seen. That was the stupidest thing I've ever done." Clara's voice was shaking now. "I thought I was going to throw up." "You didn't. You stood up." Sam took her hand. "That's what matters." Martha brought her horse alongside. "We'd best keep moving. Wade's not going to be happy when his boys come back empty-handed." They rode into Silver Falls like an army. The townspeople stopped and stared as the procession passed Sam and Clara in the wagon, surrounded by riders. Some faces showed fear. Some showed hope. Some showed the careful blankness of people who'd learned not to take sides. The courthouse was a two-story building at the end of Main Street. Wade's personal domain, his throne room. Sam helped Clara down from the wagon and took her hand. "Together," he said. "Together." They walked through the doors. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread. Apparently, everyone in Silver Falls had turned out to witness whatever was about to happen. Wade sat behind the judge's bench, his face a mask of controlled fury. Deputy Finch stood near the door, his expression troubled. "Mr. Thornton?" Wade's voice dripped with false courtesy. "I was told you'd been delayed. Your boys tried." Sam walked down the center aisle, Clara beside him. "Didn't take." "How unfortunate." Wade shuffled some papers. "I'm afraid this hearing must be postponed. Key witnesses have failed to appear and your key witnesses are right here." Eliza stepped through the door, followed by the 11 people they'd gathered. They filed into the courtroom one by one, filling the benches on Sam's side. Wade's mask slipped for just a moment. Clara saw the fear underneath, the calculation. "This is highly irregular," he said. "These people were not called as witnesses. They're calling themselves." Clara stepped forward. "Your Honor, these citizens have testimony relevant to this case. Testimony about how you've used your position to steal land and destroy lives. They have a right to be heard." "You have no standing in this court, Mrs. Ashford." "I'm a citizen of this territory. I have every standing." Clara held his gaze. "Unless you're afraid of what they might say." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Wade's eyes narrowed. "Very well." He banged his gavel. "Let the record show that the court is allowing unofficial testimony against my better judgment." "Your better judgment?" Eliza's voice cut through the room. "Is that what you call it when you stole my brother's land? When you told him his taxes were overdue and seized his property before he could prove otherwise? Mrs. Crowfeather, I must insist. You insisted my brother sign over his deed. You insisted he had no legal recourse. You insisted, and he believed you, and 6 months later, he was dead." Eliza's voice broke. "He died believing he'd failed his family, but he didn't fail. You stole everything from him." More voices joined in. "You took my father's mining claim. You foreclosed on my mother's house while she was sick in bed. You threatened to have my children taken away if I didn't sell." The courtroom erupted. Story after story poured out, years of corruption and abuse finally given voice. Wade banged his gavel again and again, but no one was listening anymore. "Order," he shouted. "I will have order in this court. You'll have justice." Sam's voice cut through the chaos. "That's what you'll have." He pulled out the documents Clara had found. The original survey, the filing receipt, the proof that Wade's entire case was built on lies. "These papers prove my water rights claim is valid. Dated March 15, 1868. Signed and witnessed. Filed with the territorial office before anyone else." Sam laid them on the judge's bench. "Your case doesn't exist, Wade. It never did. Wade's face went white. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's fact. Clara stepped beside Sam. And we've sent copies to the territorial governor in Helena, along with sworn statements from everyone in this room about your activities over the past 15 years. You can't. We already did. Martha Chen rose from her seat. Messenger left before dawn. By now, the governor knows everything. Your crimes, your thefts, your threats. She smiled grimly. Your career is over, Cornelius. The only question is whether you'll face justice here or in Helena. For a long moment, Wade sat frozen. Clara watched the calculations happening behind his eyes, the weighing of options, the search for an escape. Then his hand moved toward the gun at his hip. Don't. Deputy Finch stepped forward, his own weapon drawn. Don't do it, Judge. It's over. You work for me, Finch. I work for the law. Finch's voice was steady. And you ain't it. Not anymore. Wade's hand hovered over his gun. The whole courtroom held its breath. Then slowly, he let his hand drop. This isn't finished, he said. You think you've won something here? I have friends. Powerful friends. They'll what? Clara cut him off. Help you protect you. The way you protected all those people you stole from. She shook her head. Your friends are going to run the moment they hear what happened here. That's what rats do when the ship starts sinking. Wade's face contorted with rage. You're nothing. A worthless widow with a bastard child. You think anyone will... Sam moved faster than Clara could track. One moment he was standing beside her. The next he had Wade by the collar, dragging him halfway across the bench. You don't talk to her like that. Sam's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried through the silent courtroom. You don't talk about her child like that. You don't even think about her unless it's to beg for her forgiveness. Let go of me. I spent 2 years killing men in a war I didn't believe in. I've had nightmares about it every night since. Sam's gray eyes were ice. But I wouldn't lose a minute's sleep over you. Sam. Clara touched his arm. Let him go. He's not worth it. For a terrible moment she thought Sam might not listen. His hands were shaking with barely contained fury. But then he took a breath. Let it out. Released Wade's collar. Get out of my town, Sam said. Get out of my territory. And if I ever see your face again, I won't be so generous. Wade straightened his clothes with trembling hands. He looked around the courtroom at the faces of people he'd terrorized for years now, looking back at him without fear, without respect. This isn't over, he said again, but his voice had lost its power. Yes, Clara said quietly. It is. Wade walked out of the courtroom. Nobody tried to stop him. Nobody needed to. His power had evaporated the moment people stopped being afraid. The silence stretched for a long moment. Then Martha Chen started clapping. One person joined her, then another. Then the whole courtroom was on its feet, applauding and cheering and crying. People Clara didn't know were embracing her, thanking her, calling her a hero. You did it, Sam said in her ear, his arm tight around her shoulders. You actually did it. We did it. Clara leaned into him. Together. Together. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I like the sound of that. The celebration spilled out of the courthouse and into the street. Someone produced a fiddle. Someone else brought out bottles that had been hidden for special occasions. The whole town seemed to exhale at once, releasing years of fear and oppression. Clara stood on the courthouse steps, watching it all with wonder. Penny, for your thoughts. She turned. Eliza stood beside her, a cup of something warm pressed into her hands. I can't believe it's over. It ain't over. It's just beginning. Eliza's dark eyes were soft. You've given these people something they didn't have before. Hope. That's worth more than gold out here. I didn't do anything special. I just told the truth. That's the most special thing there is. Eliza squeezed her arm. Margaret would have been proud to call you family. Clara's throat tightened. You think so? I know so. I knew that woman better than anyone except Sam. Eliza looked out at the celebrating crowd. She had the same fire in her, the same stubborn refusal to quit. She told me once that Sam needed someone to fight for him because he was too busy fighting for everyone else. She smiled. I think she was talking about you, even before she knew you existed. Clara didn't know what to say. She was saved from answering by Sam appearing at her side. There you are. He took her hand. Martha's asking when we want to have the wedding. She says the whole town wants to come. The whole town. Apparently we're heroes now. Sam's mouth quirked. Funny how that works. Clara laughed. It felt strange in her throat. She hadn't laughed like that in so long. Pure and bright and full of joy. Tell her Saturday, she said. If Reverend Miller's available? I already asked. He's performing the ceremony himself. Sam pulled her close. Said it would be an honor. Clara looked up at him. At this man who'd saved her life and given her a home and stood beside her through the worst fight of her life. At his gray eyes soft now instead of hard. At the smile lines appearing around his mouth for the first time since she'd known him. I love you, she said. I love you too. He kissed her right there on the courthouse steps in front of God and everyone. Now let's go home. The ride back to the ranch felt different. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The same road they'd traveled that morning in fear was now peaceful, beautiful even. Clara leaned against Sam's shoulder, exhausted but content. Think Wade will actually leave? She asked. He'll have to. Governor's not going to ignore those testimonies. Sam's arm tightened around her. Besides, he's got nothing left here. No power, no respect, no one willing to do his dirty work. What about his hired guns? They'll scatter. Men like that follow money, and Wade's money just dried up. Sam kissed the top of her head. We're safe, Clara. Really safe. Safe. The word felt foreign. She'd forgotten what it meant to feel safe. What happens now? Now we go home. We get our daughter. We sleep in our own bed. Sam's voice dropped. And on Saturday, I make you my wife in front of everyone who tried to tear us apart. Our daughter. Our bed. My wife. Clara felt tears prickling behind her eyes. That sounds perfect. It ain't perfect, but it's ours. Sam pulled the wagon to a stop at the crest of a hill. Below them, the ranch spread out in the fading light, the house with smoke curling from the chimney, the barn, the outbuildings, the land that had been in dispute just hours ago. Everything you see there, it's yours now too. The water rights, the timber, the cattle, all of it. Clara stared at him. Sam, I know you don't need it. But I want you to have it. Want you to know that whatever happens to me, you and Lily will always have a home. He took her hands. Margaret never got that security. I couldn't give it to her before she died, but I can give it to you. Clara understood then. This wasn't just about land or money. This was about redemption. About a man who'd failed to save his first family, determined not to fail the second. I accept, she said softly. All of it. The land, the life, everything. She squeezed his hands. But Sam, you didn't fail Margaret. You know that, right? His jaw tightened. I wasn't there. You couldn't have known. You couldn't have saved her even if you'd been there. Clara touched his face. The yellow fever took half the territory that summer. Doctors couldn't stop it. Nothing could. Her voice gentled. You didn't fail her by living, Sam. You failed her by stopping. Stopping. Stopping living. Stopping feeling. Turning that beautiful house into a tomb and yourself into a ghost. Clara leaned her forehead against his. But you're alive again now. I can see it in your eyes. And I think I know that's what Margaret would have wanted. Sam's breath shuddered. How do you know? Because it's what I would want. If I died and Thomas was still here, Clara's voice caught. I'd want him to be happy. I'd want him to find someone else to love. Not to replace me, but to keep him company until we could be together again. You believe that? That we'll see them again? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? Clara pulled back to look at him. We loved them. They loved us. That doesn't end just because their bodies stopped working. It goes on forever. And when our time comes, we'll see them again. And we'll have so much to tell them. Sam's eyes were wet. He didn't try to hide it. How'd you get so wise? He asked, his voice rough. I'm not wise. I'm just stubborn. Clara smiled through her own tears. Now take me home, Mr. Thornton. Our daughter's waiting. Martha was on the porch when they arrived, Lily in her arms. Heard it went well, she said, as Sam helped Clara down from the wagon. Couldn't have done it without you. Clara took Lily, holding her daughter close and breathing in her sweet scent. Thank you. For everything. Thank me by being happy. Martha looked between them, a rare softness in her expression. Both of you. This territory could use more happy endings. We're working on it. Sam put his arm around Clara. Starting Saturday. I know. Whole town's talking about nothing else. Martha mounted her horse. I'll see you both at the church. Wear something nice, Sam. That old suit of yours has seen better days. She rode off, leaving them alone in the gathering darkness. Clara looked at Sam. Sam looked at Clara. Lily babbled happily between them. Welcome home, Sam said softly. Home. Clara smiled, the word no longer foreign. I like the sound of that. They walked inside together, Lily between them. The fire was burning low in the grate, but the house felt warm, alive, full of possibility instead of grief. Clara settled Lily in her basket and turned to find Sam watching her. What? Nothing, just... He shook his head. A month ago, I was alone in this house trying to work up the courage to keep breathing. Now I've got a family, a future, something to live for. Funny how life works, Clara said. Funny's one word for it. Sam crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. Miraculous might be better. I don't believe in miracles. Neither did I. He held her close. Then you fell out of the sky and landed at my crossroads. Clara laughed against his chest. I didn't fall out of the sky. I collapsed in the snow. Same thing from where I was sitting. Sam tilted her face up. You're my miracle, Clara Ashford. You and that baby. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know it. He kissed her, then slow and sweet and full of promise. Clara kissed him back, her arms around his neck, her heart fuller than it had been in years. When they finally pulled apart, Sam rested his forehead against hers. Saturday can't come fast enough, he murmured. 3 more days. 3 days too many. Clara smiled and kissed him again. Then we'd better make them count. That night, for the first time since she'd arrived at Thornton Creek Ranch, Clara didn't hear Sam pacing in the main room, didn't hear the creak of Margaret's rocking chair as he sat vigil in the dark. Instead, she heard silence. Peace. And when she finally fell asleep, it was with a smile on her face and hope in her heart. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. There would be preparations to make dresses to find a community to rebuild. Wade might be gone, but the damage he'd done would take years to repair. But for now, just for now, everything was exactly as it should be. Clara Ashford had found her home, and she was never running again. The 3 days before the wedding passed in a blur of activity. Martha Chen took charge of the preparations like a general commanding troops. She organized the food, the flowers, the decorations. She recruited half the women in Silver Falls to help with cooking and cleaning. She even produced a wedding dress from somewhere white lace, with pearl buttons, slightly yellowed with age, but beautiful nonetheless. It was mine, she told Clara when she delivered it. 40 years ago. Figured it deserved another chance at happiness. Clara held the dress against her body, feeling the weight of history in the fabric. Martha, I can't. You can and you will. Martha's voice was gruff, but her eyes were soft. Consider it a gift, from one stubborn woman to another. The night before the wedding, Clara stood in front of the mirror in Margaret's old sewing room, her room now, and tried on the dress for the final time. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. She turned slowly, watching the lace catch the lamplight. You look beautiful, She turned. Sam stood in the doorway, his eyes wide. "You're not supposed to see me before the wedding. It's bad luck." "I think we've had enough bad luck for one lifetime." Sam crossed the room slowly, his gaze never leaving her. "Clara, I don't have words." "Then don't use them." She kissed him, and for a long moment, nothing else existed. Just the two of them, standing in a room that had once belonged to another woman, preparing to start a new chapter together. "I keep thinking about Margaret," Clara admitted when they finally pulled apart. "About whether she'd approve." "She'd approve?" Sam's voice was certain. "She'd probably tell me I took too long." "How do you know?" "Because I know her." Sam touched Clara's face. "She wasn't the jealous type. Never was. When she loved someone, she wanted them happy, even if that happiness came from somewhere else." He paused. "She told me once near the end that she didn't want me to be alone. Made me promise I'd find someone else to love." "And did you promise?" "I did. But I didn't believe I'd ever keep it." Sam's eyes were wet. "Then I found you at that crossroads half frozen and still fighting. And I just knew she'd sent you to me." Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I think Thomas did the same thing. Sent me here. Made sure I didn't give up. Then they're both watching tomorrow, making sure we get it right." Sam kissed her forehead. "Get some sleep, Clara. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. The best kind of long day." "Yeah." He smiled. "The best kind." Morning came bright and clear, the sun burning off the winter clouds and flooding the world with golden light. Clara woke to find Lily already babbling in her basket, reaching chubby hands toward the window. "Today's the day, little one." Clara lifted her daughter, pressing kisses to her soft cheeks. "Today, you get a real family." Martha arrived within the hour, followed by Eliza and half a dozen other women Clara had come to know over the past weeks. They descended on her like a flock of determined birds, fussing with her hair and adjusting her dress and offering advice she didn't ask for, but somehow needed. "Don't cry during the vows," one woman warned. "Your face'll get all blotchy." "Cry if you need to," another countered. "Men like it when we cry. Makes them feel important." "Don't listen to either of them," Eliza said, brushing Clara's hair with long, even strokes. "Just be yourself. That's what Sam fell in love with." Clara met Eliza's eyes in the mirror. "I'm nervous." "Good. Means you care." Eliza set down the brush. "I was nervous when I married my husband. 42 years ago now. He's been gone 10 years, but I still remember how my hands shook when I said the vows." "Does it get easier, the missing?" "No." Eliza's voice was gentle. "But it gets different. The missing becomes part of you, like a scar you've learned to live with. And eventually, you find there's room for new love alongside the old." She squeezed Clara's shoulders. "You're not betraying Thomas by loving Sam. You're honoring him, showing him that what he gave you the ability to love didn't die when he did." Clara nodded, blinking back tears. "Now," Eliza said, briskly stepping back, "let's get you to that church." The ride to Silver Falls felt different than it had before. The last time Clara had made this journey, she'd been bracing for a fight, armed with documents and witnesses and desperate courage. Now she sat in the wagon in her borrowed wedding dress, watching the familiar landscape pass with something like wonder. "Penny, for your thoughts." She turned. Sam sat beside her, wearing a suit she'd never seen before, black wool with a white shirt underneath his beard trimmed, and his hair slicked back. He looked handsome, distinguished, like a different man than the one who'd pulled her from the snow. "I'm thinking about crossroads," she said. "About how many I've passed to get here." "Lot of crossroads," Sam agreed. "Lot of wrong turns, too." "Were they wrong, though? Or did they all lead here?" Sam considered the question. "I used to think everything happened for a reason. Then Margaret died, and I stopped believing in reasons. Stopped believing in much of anything. And now? Now I think maybe it doesn't matter. Whether there's a reason or not, we're here. We found each other. We're getting married." He took her hand. "That's enough for me." It's enough for me too." They rode the rest of the way in comfortable silence, hands intertwined. The church was packed. Clara stopped in the doorway, overwhelmed by the crowd. Every pew was full. People were standing along the walls, craning their necks for a glimpse of the bride. She recognized faces from the courthouse, the farmers and miners and shopkeepers who'd stood up against Wade. But there were others too. Strangers she'd never met. People who'd heard the story and come to witness the ending. "You ready?" Sam asked. "No." Clara took a breath. "Yes, both. That's my girl." They walked down the aisle together, Lily in Clara's arms. It wasn't traditional the bride was supposed to be given away, walked down by a father or brother or uncle. But Clara had none of those. She had only herself, her daughter, and the man she loved. That was more than enough. Reverend Miller stood at the altar, his Bible open, his face solemn but kind. He'd been part of the crowd at the courthouse, one of the quiet ones who'd watched but not spoken. After he'd sought Clara out to apologize. "I should have stood up sooner," he'd said. "Should have used my position to fight Wade years ago. I was a coward." "You're here now," Clara had replied. "That's what matters." Now he looked at them both with something like pride. "Dearly beloved," he began, his voice carrying through the crowded church. "We are gathered here today to witness the joining of two hearts that have already found each other." Clara barely heard the traditional words. She was too focused on Sam's face. On the way, he looked at her like she was the only person in the room, like she was the answer to a prayer he'd stopped believing in. "Do you, Samuel James Thornton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." Sam's voice was steady, strong. "I do, and I'll keep doing it every day for the rest of my life." A ripple of soft laughter passed through the crowd. Reverend Miller smiled. "And do you, Clara Elizabeth Ashford, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Clara looked at Sam. At this man who'd saved her life, given her a home, stood beside her through the worst fight of her existence. At his gray eyes, soft now with love. At his scarred face, beautiful in its imperfection. "I do," she said. "Forever and always I do. Then by the power vested in me by God and the territory of Colorado, I pronounce you husband and wife." Reverend Miller's smile widened. "Sam, you may kiss your bride." Sam pulled her close, mindful of Lily between them, and kissed her. The church erupted in cheers and applause. Someone started crying. Martha, Clara thought, though the older woman would deny it later. When they finally broke apart, Sam pressed his forehead to hers. "Hello, Mrs. Thornton." Clara laughed, the sound bright and free. "Hello, Mr. Thornton." "We did it. We did it." She kissed him again, quick and joyful. "Now what?" "Now we live," Sam said simply. "Together." The celebration lasted well into the evening. Tables had been set up outside the church, loaded with food that the whole town had contributed. Fiddles played, and children ran between the adults' legs, and people who'd been strangers a month ago toasted Clara and Sam like they were old friends. "I've never seen anything like this," Clara told Martha, gesturing at the crowd. "Silver Falls hasn't had much to celebrate lately. Wade kept everyone scared, suspicious. Now he's gone and people are remembering what community means." Martha poured herself another drink. "You gave them that, Clara. You and Sam. We didn't do anything special. You stood up." Martha's voice was firm. "When everyone else was too scared, you stood up. That's the most special thing there is." Clara felt tears prickling behind her eyes. "Martha, don't you start crying on me. I've already ruined one handkerchief today." But Martha's own eyes were suspiciously bright. "Just promise me you'll be happy, both of you. You've earned it." "I promise." As the evening wore on, and the celebration showed no signs of stopping, Sam found Clara standing at the edge of the crowd, watching the dancers with a small smile. "You look tired," he said, slipping his arm around her waist. "Good tired, happy tired. Happy." She leaned into him. "Is this what normal feels like? Because I'd forgotten." "I don't know if anything about us is normal." Sam kissed her temple. "But I like it anyway." "Me too." They stood there for a moment watching their community celebrate around them. Then Sam spoke again. "There's one more thing I want to do tonight, if you're willing." Clara looked up at him. "What thing?" "The adoption papers. For Lily." Sam's voice was careful, hopeful. "Judge Miller agreed to witness them before we left town. Make it official." Clara's breath caught. "You still want to?" "I've never wanted anything more." Sam turned her to face him. "That little girl deserves a father. A real one, not just someone who provides for her. I want to be that for her, Clara. I want to teach her to ride and to read and to stand up for herself. I want to be there when she takes her first steps and says her first words and falls in love for the first time." His voice cracked. "I lost my son. I'll never stop grieving for Daniel. But Lily feels like a second chance. A way to be the father I should have been." Clara was crying now. She couldn't help it. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Sam. Yes." They found Judge Miller near the punch bowl, deep in conversation with Eliza. He looked up as they approached, his expression softening when he saw their faces. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready." Sam confirmed. The paperwork was simple. A few signatures, a few witnesses, a few words spoken in the quiet corner of the celebration. But when it was done, Clara felt something shift in the air around them. A completion. A ceiling. "Congratulations." Judge Miller shook Sam's hand. "You've got yourself a daughter now." "I've got myself a family." Sam looked at Clara, then at Lily sleeping peacefully in her mother's arms. A whole complete family. They rode home in the moonlight, the wagon creaking beneath them, the night air cold but clean. Clara held Lily close, watching the familiar road unfold before them. "Sam." "Yeah. Thank you." He glanced at her. "For what?" "For stopping at that crossroads. For not leaving me there." Clara's voice was thick with emotion. "For seeing something in me worth saving." "I didn't save you, Clara." Sam reached over and took her hand. "You saved yourself. All I did was give you a place to land. That's everything. That's love." He squeezed her fingers. "That's what love does. Gives people a place to land." They rode the rest of the way in silence, but it wasn't the silence of strangers or even the comfortable silence of friends. It was the silence of two people who had said everything that needed saying and were content to simply be. The ranch appeared through the darkness, like a beacon lights burning in the windows where someone Martha probably had kept the fires going. Home, Clara thought. My home. Sam helped her down from the wagon and took Lily from her arms. "Let me," he said when she reached for the baby. "I want to carry my daughter into her house." Clara followed them inside, watching as Sam settled Lily into the cradle they'd built together. The baby stirred, but didn't wake her small face peaceful in the firelight. "She's perfect," Sam murmured. "She is." Clara stood beside him, leaning her head on his shoulder. "She's ours now, really ours. Really ours." Sam turned to her, his eyes bright in the dim light. "And so are you. Really mine. Really yours." He kissed her, then slow and deep and full of promise. Clara kissed him back, her arms around his neck, her heart fuller than she'd ever thought possible. They had survived. Both of them against impossible odds. They had found each other in the wreckage of their lives and built something new from the broken pieces. And now, finally, they were home. 1 year later, spring came early to Thornton Creek Ranch. Clara stood on the porch watching the world transform around her. The snow had melted weeks ago, replaced by wildflowers that carpeted the meadows in shades of purple and gold. The creek ran high with snowmelt singing its way through the valley. Everything felt alive, renewed, full of possibility. "Mama, look!" She turned. Lily, no longer a baby, but a toddler now, all wild curls and bright eyes, came running around the corner of the house. She held something in her chubby fist, thrusting it toward Clara with obvious pride. "Flower. Pretty flower." Clara knelt down, accepting the crushed dandelion with appropriate reverence. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Did you pick it yourself?" "Papa helped." Sam appeared behind their daughter, looking sheepish. "She insisted, pulled up half the garden before I could stop her." "It's just a garden. It'll grow back." Clara scooped Lily up, settling her on one hip. "Besides, it's a very pretty flower." "The prettiest," Lily agreed solemnly. Clara laughed. A year ago she'd forgotten how to laugh. Now she did it every day, sometimes for no reason at all. The sound still surprised her sometimes, that bright, free sound that came from somewhere deep inside. "Martha's coming for dinner tonight," Sam said, joining them on the porch. "Said she has news." Good news or bad news? Didn't say. But she sounded excited, which could mean anything with Martha. Clara smiled. Martha Chen had become family over the past year, dropping by regularly with supplies and gossip and unsolicited advice. She'd helped Clara plant the vegetable garden, taught her to preserve food for winter, and served as unofficial grandmother to Lily. Everyone in Silver Falls knew that to cross Clara Thornton was to cross Martha Chen, and nobody was foolish enough to do that. "Maybe she finally convinced Mr. Henderson to propose," Clara suggested. "Henderson's been sweet on her for 20 years. If he hasn't proposed by now—" "Never say never." Clara leaned into Sam's side, feeling his arm come around her automatically. "Stranger things have happened." "Yeah." Sam's voice was soft. "They have." They stood there in comfortable silence, watching Lily toddle off to investigate a butterfly. The world stretched out before them, the ranch, the valley, the mountains in the distance. All of it theirs, all of it home. "I've been thinking," Sam said after a while. "Dangerous activity." He smiled, but his eyes were serious. "About the north pasture, the one that overlooks the creek." "What about it?" "It's good land, flat, well watered. I was thinking we might build something there." Clara's heart skipped. "Build what?" "A house. A second house." Sam turned to face her. "For the family." Clara stared at him. "Sam, we have a house." "We have my house. Margaret's house." He took her hands. "I want to build our house, yours and mine. A place that's just ours from the ground up. No ghosts, no memories that aren't our own." Clara felt tears pricking her eyes. "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." Sam squeezed her hands. "Margaret will always be part of this ranch. Part of me. But you deserve something that belongs to just us. To our family." Clara thought about the house behind them, about Margaret's shawl still hanging by the door. Clara hadn't had the heart to move it, and the china plates on the shelf and the rocking chair by the fire. She'd grown to love that house, ghosts and all. But Sam was right. It would never fully be hers. Not the way a new house could be. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay. Okay. Let's build a house." She smiled through her tears. "But I want a big kitchen, and windows everywhere, and a room for Lily that faces the sunrise." "Done." Sam pulled her close. "Anything else?" "A porch. A big one, where we can sit and watch our grandchildren play someday." "Grandchildren." Sam's voice was rough with emotion. "I like the sound of that." "So do I." He kissed her there on the porch of his first home, with their daughter playing in the yard and the spring sun warming their faces. Clara kissed him back, her arms around his neck, her heart so full it hurt. A year ago she'd been dying in the snow, lost, alone, convinced that the world had nothing left to offer her but pain. Now she had everything, a home, a family, a future. And she'd never let go of any of it. Martha arrived at sunset, her wagon laden with more food than 3 people could eat in a week. "I may have over-prepared," she admitted, handing down baskets to Sam. "You always over-prepare." Clara hugged the older woman warmly. It's one of your best qualities. But Martha was smiling. Where's my granddaughter? Inside terrorizing the cat. Good. Cats need terrorizing. Martha headed for the house with purpose in her stride. Don't wait dinner on my account. I need to see that baby. Clara and Sam exchanged amused glances. She's not even her real grandmother, Sam muttered. She's the grandmother Lily has. That makes her real enough. They ate dinner around the big table, the same table where Clara had first shared a meal with Sam, starving and desperate and too tired to hope. Now she sat there as his wife, their daughter between them, surrounded by warmth and love and the smell of good food. So, Clara said, as they finished dessert, Sam mentioned you had news. Martha set down her fork. I do. 2 pieces, actually. Let's hear them. First, Wade's trial in Helena finally concluded. Guilty on 12 counts of fraud, theft, and abuse of office. He'll spend the next 15 years in territorial prison. A weight Clara hadn't realized she was carrying lifted from her shoulders. 15 years? At least. And when he gets out, he'll be 70 years old with nothing to show for his life but enemies. Martha's smile was grim. Justice delayed, but justice nonetheless. And the second piece of news? Martha's expression changed, softened. Eleanor Ashford died. Clara froze. What? 3 weeks ago. Consumption. Her lawyer sent a letter to the territorial office trying to reach you. Martha produced an envelope from her pocket. This was inside. Clara took the envelope with trembling hands. She recognized the handwriting immediately, not Eleanor's sharp, precise script, but something older, softer. That's Thomas's writing, she breathed. The lawyer said Eleanor found it among his effects after he died. She kept it hidden all this time. Martha's voice was gentle. I think you should read it. Clara looked at Sam. He nodded, his eyes full of understanding. She opened the envelope. My dearest Clara, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. I've written this letter as a precaution. The railroad work is dangerous, and I want you to know certain things in case I don't get the chance to say them myself. First, I love you. I've loved you since the moment you walked into that schoolhouse in Boston, all fire and determination and beauty. I knew then that I would marry you, and every day since has confirmed what a lucky man I am. Second, the baby you carry is mine. I know my mother has her doubts. She's always been suspicious of happiness, but don't let her poison your joy. That child is the greatest gift you could give me. If I don't live to see our baby born, know that I died the happiest man in the world, knowing that part of me would live on in you. Third, if I die, don't stop living. Find someone else to love. Build a new life. Don't let grief become a prison. You deserve happiness. Clara, more happiness than I could ever give you. Don't waste your beautiful heart on mourning. I love you. I will always love you. No matter what happens, remember that. Forever yours. Thomas. Clara was crying. She couldn't help it. Couldn't stop the sobs that tore through her body. Couldn't control the shaking of her hands. Sam was beside her, instantly pulling her close, letting her weep against his chest. It's okay, he murmured. It's okay. I've got you. He knew. Clara's voice was broken. He knew about the baby. He loved her before she was even born. He loved you both. Eleanor kept this, all this time. Clara pulled back, wiping her eyes. She could have shown it to me, could have stopped all those lies, all that cruelty. But she kept it hidden. She was hurting too, Martha said quietly. Grief makes people do terrible things. That doesn't excuse— No, it doesn't. Martha reached across the table and took Clara's hand. But she's gone now. And you have the truth. Maybe that's all that matters. Clara looked down at the letter, at Thomas's familiar handwriting, at the words he'd written for her, never knowing if she'd read them. Find someone else to love. Build a new life. Don't let grief become a prison. She'd done that. Without even knowing it was what he wanted, she'd done exactly what Thomas had asked. "Can I keep this?" she whispered. "It's yours." Martha squeezed her hand. "It was always yours." Later, after Martha had gone and Lily was asleep, Clara sat by the fire with the letter in her lap. Sam sat beside her silent, giving her space to process. "Do you think he knows?" Clara asked finally. "Thomas, do you think he knows I'm happy?" "I think so." Sam took her hand. "I think he and Margaret are somewhere together watching us make fools of ourselves and cheering us on." Clara laughed through her tears. "That's a nice thought." "It's more than a thought. It's what I believe." Sam pulled her closer. "They wanted us to live, Clara, both of them. And we are. We're living the hell out of this life." Language. Lily's asleep. Still. But Clara was smiling now. "Thank you, Sam. For everything. For the past year. For the years to come. Don't thank me. Just keep loving me. Always." She kissed him softly. Forever and always. They sat together in the firelight, watching the flames dance, listening to the quiet sounds of their sleeping daughter. Outside, the spring night was cool and clear, full of stars and promise. Clara thought about Crossroads, about all the paths she'd traveled to get here, the pain and the loss, and the near misses. About the moment when she'd collapsed in the snow, ready to die, and a stranger on horseback had stopped to save her. Not a stranger anymore. Her husband. Her partner. Her home. She pressed her hand against her stomach, feeling the small flutter there. The secret she hadn't told Sam yet. The new life growing inside her, tiny and miraculous and full of possibility. Soon she would tell him. Soon they would celebrate together, would plan and dream and prepare. But for now, she just wanted to sit here. In this moment. In this perfect, hard-won peace. Clara Ashford had been lost once. Broken. Ready to give up. But she'd been found. By a man who'd lost everything himself. By a community that had forgotten how to hope. By a daughter who needed her, and a future that was worth fighting for. She'd been lost, and she'd been found, and now she was exactly where she was meant to be. Home. Not just a place. Not just four walls and a roof. Home was Sam's arms around her. Lily's laughter in the morning. Martha's endless advice, and Eliza's quiet wisdom. The letter in her pocket from a husband who'd loved her enough to let her go. Home was love in all its forms, and Clara Thornton, widow, mother-wife survivor, had finally found hers. The fire burned low in the grate, the stars wheeled overhead, and somewhere in a heaven that Clara chose to believe in, Thomas Ashford and Margaret Thornton smiled down at the family they'd helped create. "Thank you," Clara whispered to them both, "for leading us home." Outside, the spring wind rustled through the new leaves, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and fresh beginnings. And in that moment, Clara knew with absolute unshakable certainty that the best was yet to come. Because love, once found, never truly dies. It just changes form, and grows, and leads us home.